Welcome to another episode of The Moment of Tiki, coming to you from the Lagoon of Mystery, my home tiki bar here in Central Texas. I have a really cool episode lined up for you tonight. Aren't they all cool? I mean, really? No. This is a good one, I promise you. I have a guest in the Lagoon of Mystery, the artist Tony Canepa. You may know him from his work with Hidden Harbor, the fantastic tiki bar in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or you may know him from his work with Tiki Tatsuya, the incredible tiki bar we have right up the road in Austin, Texas, or you may be a random person just stumbling in and not knowing anything about tiki whatsoever, but you may know his work from a lot of minor league baseball and hockey and other sports franchises. He's done all sorts of different really cool things, and we're going to touch on a lot of his work in this conversation to follow. So stay tuned, gang. It's pretty cool. And we are here with artist Tony Canepa. Your first visit to Lagoon of Mystery. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's fabulous. Fabulous to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. Glad you were able to brave Interstate 35 and get here in one piece, because we all know that isn't always a given. So I just want to talk to you about all of your really cool tiki art endeavors. First of all, why don't you give us the secret origin? How did you get involved with tiki to begin with?
I was always kind of a little bit of a tiki enthusiast coming up through probably starting in the early 2000s and whatnot. But when I lived in Las Vegas, I visited Taboo Cove and the Venus Lounge, which was, I believe, the first new tiki bar built in 20 some odd years or something. That was designed by Bosco. And that kind of got a little bit of an inkling for me, kind of like, oh, this is interesting. But I kind of the mid-century modern kind of resonated with me a little bit more. The Venus Lounge shag side was very cool. And so I kind of dipped my toes in there. And then when I moved to Dallas, I was lucky enough to experience the Dallas Trader Vic's that they reopened. And, the first time I visited, I didn't drink rum because I knew Captain Morgan, Malibu, and Bacardi. And I was like, oh, I don't like rum. So I got a vodka Mai Tai. And I tried it, and I was like, oh, this is a pretty tasty drink. And then my friend ordered the regular Mai Tai, and I tried hers, and it was over. And that was it. I was like, oh, I apparently like rum now.
Well, that's good to hear, because if you still thought the vodka Mai Tai was better, we're going to have to end this interview right now.
Right, exactly. The fact that, it's some people find it an affront that's even on the menu, but I like to tell that story because that was kind of my gateway.
It's a gateway. It's a bridge.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where it's like, if you don't have the experience with a really good, tasty rum, now there are multitudes that you have access to. If you don't have experience with that, Captain Morgan's usually what people have had, and so
they have the advertising budget.
That's right. And so it's really nice to get people in the door, and then it's like, oh, but let me put a regular 1944 in front of you, and you're going to be a fan for life.
So how did you bridge from being a fan of tiki in general to being a go-to tiki artist? I've lost track of how many tiki bars, professional tiki bars, are you working with? You've got Hidden Harbor, You've got Inside Passage, you've got Tiki Tatsuya here in the Austin area. Right. That's a murderer's row of lineup of tiki bars.
I'm very, very lucky to have been a part of each of those places and to work with really, really great people through all of them. And my gateway was through Rumba in Seattle. And the manager at the time, Kate Perry, who is now a rum ambassador for Maison and Bellier for their amazing Haitian rums. I'm sorry, what is the term for Haitian rum?
Clarin.
Clarin, thank you for the Clarin. And she she's forgotten more rum knowledge than I will ever know. But we were regulars at Rumba. It was my wife and I and all of our friends, our favorite place to go. And we started chatting. She knew I did design work and whatnot. And we kind of were talking, and they said, we're going to do a Tiki Tuesday kind of menu, because Rumba is not a tiki bar. It's a Cuban daiquiri bar. And they have over, I think, 900 expressions of rum at this point. Yeah, it's incredible. And then now they have the adjoining Inside Passage, which I worked with later. But it just started out, they were like, people ask for tiki cocktails. We love doing them, but we're going to kind of make it a night. We're going to do a Tiki Tuesday. And she asked me to do 5 illustrations for their menu. And, excuse me. She asked me to do 5 illustrations for their menu. And those were my first initial little paintings of doing some cocktails, and somebody that they had on staff there like designed the menu. I just did the illustrations, and that was kind of the start. And after that, I did a zombie glass for the Diller Room, which is down the street. This great dive bar, and they have a tiki, or a bartender that specializes in tiki cocktails, named Justin, and he wanted a glass, and so that was my very first one that I did for Diller Room. We were able to do gold on it at the time, and once that hit the streets, then all of a sudden it was like, oh, now I get to do. Other people were reaching out for glassware.
You became that guy.
I became the glass guy, like very quickly, just because I owe it a lot to, I think the gold is so impressive on the glassware that it gets people's attention, that other places were like, I gotta have that.
You got that metal pops.
Yeah, oh, it's incredible. And it's a shame, like, Culture Cove, South Pacific Promotions, Gene out there in San Diego, he's done every single glass I've produced. And the factory that he uses that did the gold and the platinum, they no longer want to do that anymore. So that is no longer accessible, which is a real shame.
Okay, so what goes in to designing a zombie glass or a Mai Tai glass? There's a lot of intricate artwork here that's fantastic, but what factors do you have to take into account when you're designing something like this?
That's an excellent question, and like it's an interesting challenge, because like first of all, you have a circular vessel, and you never actually get to see all the sides at the same time. I illustrate it all flat, but I have to understand where it wraps around, like what you're going to be seeing at any given moment. And early in my tiki experience at the Dallas Trader Vic's, and actually this glass is available on all the Trader Vic's. I don't know the term for the mug, but it's a short mug that has a mural around it of a sailor and a hula girl, and the sailor's chasing the girl, and then they're kissing, then they're rolling in the waves, and she slaps him, and then he's chasing her again, and it goes around and around the mug. And that was one of my favorite things, to sit at the bar, and as I enjoyed my cocktail, I would rotate that glass.
Because it told a story.
It told a story, and so all of the glassware that I create, I try to make it as seamless as possible all the way around. And there's kind of tricks for that, like these. The artwork on these glasses, it's laid down in essentially silk screens. Each color is its own screen, and very much like a t-shirt. And then there is a gap due to the circular nature of the surface. There's a gap in order to get the screens to register properly, to line up. There's a 3/4 inch gap, and so you can stagger those gaps a little bit and basically hide where the color is missing. And so it's kind of a trick to like make it all look seamless, or as seamless as possible. But that's kind of part of the fun and the challenge of doing glassware like that.
Okay, so moving. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
So a lot of times with a glass, like a client may come to me with a concept. They may have an idea, maybe a specific event or something like that. But many times it might just be like, hey, like we're looking at doing a zombie glass. Here's kind of the maybe like it might be thematic for the bar itself. Maybe they've never done a glass before, and with those ones, I always try and like be like, hey, what's the story that the bar is trying to tell? And I love to incorporate bits and pieces, like unique artifacts from the bar, that to work those into the storytelling. So that way, like if you're sitting at the bar and you're looking at your glass, you may go, hey, this tiki, this mask, like I see that over here, and like this skull piece, I see that over there. And then, so it feels very like integrated into the environment.
Okay, so moving from traditional glassware into mug design, it's not like you are someone who goes for the classics, like the simple bucket mug or something.
Right.
What is involved with designing these certainly elaborate mugs that have a fixation on octopods, mollusks?
Yes, yeah. But I always kind of say that like anything worth doing is worth overdoing, and like these mugs are probably a prime example of that. I believe for the Inside Passage mug, we working with Monk Tiki, they went through maybe 3 different factories that were just like, I don't think we can produce this, and there was a lot of work to try and find the right place, and eventually we did, and like the mug turned out tremendously, but like it was a challenge getting there for sure. But going into mug design, these were I want to say this one was the second mug that I ever designed. I did one a mug. My first mug was for BG Reynolds for their Kickstarter. This was my second one. This was my third. And I'm a sculptor as a hobby, but that's kind of the one thing that I do artistically that I kind of do for myself, and I've never done that to get paid for. Okay. But for these, I did turnarounds. I basically illustrated all sides of it, and then that was given to a sculptor who translated that into the finished piece. And I was very, very specific about size, scale, what I wanted, even to the point of I would print out the components and like hold them in my hands to make sure it's like, okay, does this feel right? Especially for this mug, because it was such a large vessel, I wanted to be able to like hold it so you'd have a nice grip underneath the rudder here, and it would just fit nicely in my hand.
And it's interesting, this one, because you might not look at it because of all the elements and the action going on here, but this is like a classic goblet.
It is. That's exactly it, and that's kind of how I pitched it. That we wanted to have like a very sturdy base so it wouldn't tip over, and then have kind of this narrow area and then kind of the big basin on the top. And this thematically was based around the Inside Passage bar has a giant octopus that Notch created.
Kiki, right?
Kiki is the octopus, or the Kiki the Kraken, and she lives in the Inside Passage through Puget Sound, and pulls down ships in order to collect things, and that's the nature of the bar. And so we wanted to kind of show that in action a little bit, and so I did a very rough sketch, a little thumbnail that got selected, and then I started working up my turnarounds illustrations. And I actually made a small sculpted maquette that's about this big, just so I could actually track the tentacles as they went around the surface. So I would make sure that in all of my drawings, the tentacles made sense traveling around. But it was, it was just a little maquette made out of Super Sculpey that was, 3 inches tall, and then worked it up to there.
So when you're doing the initial concept design, do you just have a notepad and just sketch random ideas, everything that pops into your head until something starts speaking to you?
Yeah, pretty much. Usually I'll start with small thumbnails, and this is like for an illustration project or with a mug design, anything like that. Start small, do a lot of iterations, and sometimes I may have like a really good idea, even on the phone call, talking to the client, I'll start sketching immediately. And sometimes that one gets picked, or it might be maybe the 5th iteration gets selected.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you see, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. If you really like what you've been seeing here at A Moment of Tiki, please leave a comment or maybe even share the video to your feeds. What this does is make it easier for others to find A Moment of Tiki. And if you do that, I will be grateful. Mahalo. Okay, we had to pivot a little bit because we were having some sun and heating issues. So if you're wondering, wait a second, how are they moving around? That's why. Anyway, so we talked about your glasswork and everything, but how do you approach this other, designing a menu, the flatware menus, coasters, all this other stuff? Because some of this is just freaking amazing. Your Hidden Harbor rum list. This is gorgeous. Did you design the embossed tiki on the front and everything?
This is a pretty recent addition to Hidden Harbor. They've always had a tremendous rum list, but I think they've got 550 bottlings and still counting. And so this Adam at Hidden Harbor really wanted to kind of polish up their presentation, and I kind of discovered a company that would do these embossings at like kind of a smaller run because they didn't need 100 of them. And it was like designing this layout, kind of finding the right material, and then trying to create kind of a workable, usable, very functional but like visually pleasing kind of list of all of their 500 plus rums. So it was I always try and start with kind of function first, especially with a piece like this, or with any menu. And because you can make it as beautiful as you want, but if you can't read it in a dim tiki bar, those kind of things, those are all the challenges that you have, that you want to make sure that everything's as presented as well as possible and is very, very pleasing and easy for the guest to order their next cocktail, especially after, a zombie or two.
You like die cuts with your menus.
I do. That kind of started out, I did a lot of die cuts on materials in the baseball world. That's kind of where I got my start doing graphic design and whatnot. And then this menu initially was designed. Hidden Harbor has a very lovely but more traditional kind of storefront kind of building, they're not able to have this big grand tiki entrance like you might have at the Maikai or something like that. So one of the concepts that we came up with was to create our own fantasy kind of entrance, that when you get presented with the Hidden Harbor menu, that you would walk across the bridge, you would walk in through the doors between these two tikis that flank it. And so this was kind of this idea of creating this like fantasy environment that exists kind of in the mind of your experience at Hidden Harbor, but doesn't actually exist in reality. And so I designed this layout, and then the die cut shape kind of came as a part of that. And one of the things this shows up a lot, but there's actually a full back of the restaurant as well. I kind of suggested a few things. I was like, what's behind the restaurant? Is there a pier? Is there water? Is there a staircase? And Adam just said, how about all of it? And so we worked all of that in with some fountains and water features. And
you got to have a water feature in the tiki bar.
Of course, yeah. So this is one of those things where I really like that. And even if you're in the bar, you may not notice that this is there, but every now and again, somebody will turn over the menu and get a little bit extra.
Sweet. So tell me about the story behind the secret origin of the Tiki Tatsuya menu, because that's the one I'm most familiar with, and it blows everyone away when they see it, because this isn't a menu, this is a menu with a capital.
Yes. They were very kind. The original bar manager when Tiki Tatsuya was still in development, a gentleman named Aaron Reed, who I think is a tremendous mixologist, he brought me in initially to do a glass design, and I ended up doing a couple glasses following that. And then when they were developing their menu, the Tatsu-Ya brand, they have a couple of in-house designers, but they also bring in outside creatives, like to help them out, that may be able to do something specific and special, so to do something specific and special. And they came to me with the concept of this fold-out menu that would have these wings that came out, and it would have a map of this fantasy island on which Tiki Tatsu-Ya exists. And they gave me a very, very rough layout that was essentially like a pencil outline. And then they just said, okay, this is the map of the island, but we want you to do all the drink illustrations and we want you to fill in everything that's on the island. And so I said, great. And so I started working from their base, and then just started building it up kind of layer by layer. And I'm a big fan of, old vintage, like Mad Magazine, and that kind of thing. And there's an artist named Will Elder, who is an illustrator, and he used to use the term chicken fat. So in Will Elder illustrations, or Wallace Wood, or any of those guys from the Mad Magazine, especially 50s, 60s, 70s, they would always add all these little gags and things. They would fill out the page with more fun and just unique things that would go on in the background that weren't necessarily integral to the main piece. And the Tiki Tatsuya menu was a great example of, I really tried to add the chicken fat. And the term chicken fat, it's the stuff that's not totally necessary, but it makes it taste good.
Yeah.
That's the origin of that. And so I try to work in just little creatures, and there's tikis kind of everywhere, and there's little huts and things, and just little things that you would find that you would maybe notice on your second or third or fourth visit. So that was kind of the concept behind it. One thing that people don't usually notice, again, because this is a little bit of a dark tiki bar, that there actually was some construction to the layout where they wanted the lighter sweet drinks on the left, and that's a daytime scene. And then the darker, more spicy drinks and stronger drinks are on the right-hand side, and that's a nighttime scene. And so that's one of those things that people, when I point that out, is oftentimes people are like, "Oh my gosh, I never noticed that." So.
And then you have the fold-outs where the group drinks are down below, they're hidden.
That's correct.
You have to explore to find them.
That's exactly right. And that was exciting because they had the concept and whatnot, but they didn't know what was going to be on the wings and whatnot. And so I did an illustration of the Dante Maru, which was the ship, and that coming in through the water and seeing the island in the distance and that kind of thing. I did that on the outside of the wings, so then when you open that up, you would have the full span.
Okay, so where did the idea of printing the Tatsuya menu on like a wood backing, I've never seen that before.
They wanted a very impressive menu when you held it, like with heft, and so like in this great like leather portfolio. And there was a craftsman in Austin that produced all of those menu covers, and I don't know his name. I apologize. I'm so,
you know who
sorry.
you are.
He did amazing work, and they actually gave me an initial die line for kind of like the space that I had and where the cuts would be and that kind of thing. I actually made the mistake. I didn't know, I produced all the artwork and then I created my own die line for it. Like I knew what the edges were, but there's the interior die line where the folds for the wings are. And so I assumed that these would be printed and produced after the artwork and whatnot, not knowing that all of the menu covers had already been done. And so I sent in the final artwork, and basically they came back and said, "Oh no, the die line isn't correct. This isn't going to line up. We already have 100 of these menus that cost, I don't even know how much each. We can't change the menu cover. We need to change the artwork." And so I went back and shifted things around, repainted a couple things, and corrected my die line to kind of match like what was already existing. But I think the end result is like just amazing, and I'm very very happy like that, you know, everybody gets to experience that. There's so much in Tiki Tatsuya that you don't, like on multiple trips you don't see everything, but everybody sees the menu, which is a really exciting thing to have.
Well, every time I go, I say, you know, whenever y'all are ready to retire these, this is my contact information. I want one because I have a pretty good collection of menus from tiki bars across the country, and that's not one of them. So
they get a lot of requests, and I believe all requests are turned down. I believe that those menus, I believe, are very very costly, and they do not let them go. So it's a shame. I'd love to do, you know, maybe a print version of that. You know, that would be really
people would be happy with that, I think. You know, sell them in they used to have that gift shop out front. You could buy the swag and everything. Have your take-home version of the menu.
Yeah, for sure.
That would be great. Okay, so what else? What other cool stuff do we have here? We've got swizzles. Look at this. Let's talk about swizzles. Let's talk about making swizzles.
Yeah. So swizzles are always like everything about tiki. I think one of the things I love about it is it's all functional art, right? Yeah. It's all in service of having a good time and creating this experience. And you know, these are some great little spears that I produced for Hidden Harbor. This was Adam, the owner, like it was his initial idea. He made a little sketch of it, and then I took that and kind of ran with it and added a little bit of character. This design, this sculpt, all of these are made by Royer, who does...
They do all the swizzles.
All the swizzles. I think we may have crippled a couple of the sculptors on this particular design with all the curves and everything, so I apologize for that, whoever you are. We love the finished product. But the fun part about these is like, I draw them, I design them to scale and whatnot, but kind of the fun thing is figuring out, like, you know, how these might be utilized. Is like these this one can work both like on a Mai Tai glass, but also, you know, also in a zombie glass with, you know, utilizing the mouth or different parts. And so there's a lot of different like fun little bits and pieces that you can do. And so like that's kind of one of the neat things that is just kind of part of that. And I don't know. And one of the kind of the neat things that we get to do is we get to select the materials as well. Like this is a translucent. The pink and the peach have like a pearlescent texture to them. So that's kind of a fun way to add a little bit of kind of nuance to the design. And then you get into hot stamping, you do foil, you do color, all that kind of thing. This is another one for Hidden Harbor. This is based on a Crazy Owl Lono Tiki that they had produced for their bar. And then this is another recent one. This is for Inside Passage. This is one of Kiki's tentacles here, and this is kind of a cool one because it works, you know, both ways. We have the logo at the top, the porthole logo, and then you also have, you know, the tentacle that can come up to the surface as well. So it's always nice to kind of design something that can be used in multiple orientations and whatnot. So
great.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Sounds like they were all fun to me.
Yeah, I love getting to create objects. Glassware is fun and doing artwork is neat, but when you actually get to design something that is going to be a 3D piece that people can handle, and especially, you know, like the sculptors at Royer did a really wonderful job with Al's Tiki here that, you know, has some depth and some texture. It ends up just being more experiential, I think, like all the way across, and I love that kind of, you know, that idea.
So what's on your wish list? You've done mugs, you've done glassware, you've done coasters, you've done menus, you've done matchbooks, you've done stickers, you've done postcards, you've done magazine covers.
Right.
You have prints. We have a print of yours upstairs. What's next? What is still out there that you know, aspire to, or it's an itch that you haven't scratched yet? Is there anything? Is there nothing left under the sun? Do you weep daily when you look at your oeuvre of work that you've done?
There's always something new that we can kind of branch out into, you know, like I was going to say, like, maybe do a bar design.
Ah.
That was something. I did some concept artwork for oh my god, I'm drawing a blank on the name. Miles from Monk Tiki, his bar.
Dead Man's Isle.
Dead Man's Isle. I was
Isle.
gonna say Dead Man's Pass, and that's not right. Dead Man's Isle. I got to do some concept sketches for Dead Man's Isle up in Washington, or up in Oregon, and that was awesome. Like based on Miles's kind of suggestions, like he wanted a back bar that was built out of crates, and I did concept art for that, and just taking some orientations of the bar and just sketching in what could be there. That was really fun, and I got to design the team from Hidden Harbor. They own a brewery in Pittsburgh that's called Golden Age, and I got to help design kind of the interior of that restaurant, which was just amazing time. Just filling out the space. It's a huge room. There was just all these different attributes that I had to work around, but trying to create a space that was like warm and inviting and just had lots of like texture and appeal, and it was a different set of muscles than doing something that's tiki, but we still kind of worked in. It's definitely vintage. It has kind of a retro inspired atmosphere. And there's a bowling alley upstairs that is not yet open, and so that's an interesting one that is still being worked on. So
that sounds fascinating. All right. Well, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy week to come and visit us here, and hopefully it won't be so long next time that we get to see you again.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. So until next time, from the Lagoon of Mystery, aloha.
Aloha.
And we're just going to have idle chit chat.
Okay, nice recording.
Idle chit chat.
Yes,
idle chit chat.
we're
We both in the frame.
He's in here. He's in here.
We both in.
No, you gotta go back.
Tell me this.
There.
That look okay
He's
for
in
right.
Peas and,
Okay.
That's what you're supposed to say.
peas
when
and
you're-
carrots. Sibilance.
Sibilance. She always thought that Tom Hanks was saying syphilis in that Saturday Night Live sketch. So.
Well, if you ever feel lonely and you haven't got a friend, you feel downhearted and that, you rope in to get yourself together and head for a place I know. It's a little German town with a Spanish name, and once you go there, you never be the same, and it's a whole lot cleaner and safer than Mexico. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio, and once you hit the city limits, you don't have to be alone. Every tavern salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying an overload knows a boom in a little bird they call a grain. If your ever loving woman won't treat you right, and your nights get longer and your pants get tight, then get yourself moving and get ready for a change. Some fella said money can't find the love, but I know it could be. And speaking of that classic country town they call a Grange. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 1 if you got a little money and you feel uptight, go to LaGrange and they'll treat you right. Just stop at the filling station, give them half a chance. And they'll give you directions to a little retreat with a great air government inspected meat, and they'll send you to the famous chicken ranch. Well, it's 90 miles from Houston, 120 from San Antonio, and I want you here to see today, but you don't have to be alone. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overloads, knows a two-minute little bird they call green. Every traveling salesman that's on the road, every trucker that's carrying overloads, knows a two-minute little bird they call green. Thank you.
Honey, that is a little country place out there. The people's tried to make it into something that it wasn't. Just a little country whore, that's what it amounted to.
Yeah.